First question is about, sorry I left, maybe somebody already asked this question, but we've been asked to look at post-tenure review. And so I was talking about it and thinking about it and asking people about it, and the AAUP website says basically it's a bad idea. But then in the meantime, somebody else said on our faculty that we're supposed to be doing post-tenure review here at Hilo, and why aren't we doing it? And I was wondering if your campuses, how you handle that.
This is part of what the prohibitive practice was about. We need to make a distinction between post-tenure review and 5-year reviews. Yeah, we do have 5-year reviews. Post-tenure review seems to imply that there might be some punitive measure taken if you didn't measure up that could implicate your tenure. That is something that UPA certainly is not going to stand for. So I guess my first question is, who is we? When you said we've been asked, who's the we and who did the asking?
Some faculty, I'm the chair of Faculty Congress here, and there are some faculty members here who would like to have us look at, basically asking why our campus does not do post-tenure review. So we are considering entertaining a motion to have our administration institute this protocol. I'm inclined not to do that. But to me, it sounds like a bad idea. But if we're supposed to do it, we have to do it. So I was wondering how it's handled at other places.
I think Jan will answer it, but before he gets there, I just want to add one thing. I wish you could have heard the discussion yesterday at the Manoa Faculty Senate. I wish we could have taped it, but the chair didn't want us taping it. And it clearly, I think there's a lack of understanding of what the 5-year review process is all about. And I'll let Jan really give you the details on that.
UHPA was on the cutting edge in the 1980s over this issue. You will never see me use the word post-tenure review. I never use post-tenure review. What we have is the implementation of a Board of Regents policy called continuing evaluation. It basically says that throughout your career, we will continue to evaluate what we are doing and so forth. We reached an agreement with the administration in the 1980s, actually. It's about 1984, where the Vice President for Academic Affairs, at the time, which also served as the Vice President for Academic Affairs for Manoa. So remember, Manoa was covered by the President's office at the time. We sat down, Byron Bender, who was President of UHPA, and myself, sat down with her to discuss the implementation. We came away with the following agreements. Number one, this is not a process of re-tenuring. UHPA is built, the organization is built on the concept of the uniquenesses of tenure and academic freedom in an academic workplace. We can digress sometime into that conversation. It is not just about job security, it's about a lot more. So, once attained, you do not re-tenure. Number two, there are, however, expectations that everyone in a department or division should live up to, should abide to. And those expectations, in general terms, should be determined at the lowest level by the department. So when it comes to continuing evaluation, the question is taking what you have done for some period of time, in this case it's 5 years, reviewing it again at the lowest level, and at this point we refer not to the process of tenure, which goes through a DPC to the DC and so on and so forth, but between the department or division chair and the individual. If there is a dispute over whether I am meeting the expectations or not, at that point the dean gets involved in the resolution. Well, actually, the dean doesn't get involved with that resolution. That's a faculty committee. The dean gets involved only when there is a plan for remediation of whatever those deficiencies are. And in particular, it was because the dean had resources to do that. But every part of that process was deliberately designed to not look like tenure, promotion, or reappointment. It was designed as a separate and standalone. Further, the administration and UHPA both agreed that that process had nothing to do with whether or not the employer has just cause for termination. That stands alone. And the burden is on the employer to prove that they have just cause. So if the facts exist for them to take some action, then it's up to them to determine when to do that responsibly. The evaluation process, though, was to give us all invigoration in terms of what we are doing. And we knew that the mere fact of a faculty member who had been here 30 years, sitting down with a colleague and looking at what they were doing and what the expectations were, was going to have an effect. Shining light on something, the mere fact that you shine it on it, creates change. And it did. We also knew when we initially put it into effect, one of the consequences would be retirements. That faculty would retire. And they did. And it's why the procedure has a provision that says, if it is time for your 5-year evaluation and you give notice of your retirement, you do not have to go through the process. Now, unfortunately, there have not been many, a handful or two across the system, of faculty members who probably have abused that provision. They have agreed to remediation programs which they have not followed through on. They have strung it out. They have taken, in many cases, good faith and turned it on its ear. We, UHPA, don't agree with that. We are willing to sit down and take a look at the procedure, particularly on that aspect, to make sure that you cannot game the system. That's not what this is about. On the other hand, I want to emphasize it. This is not a path to dismissal. Not a path to dismissal. If dismissal is right, and it should come, and the administration believes that, they must create that body, that evidence, that argument on their own. That's why they get paid $300,000 a year. All right? I mean, that's not justify the $300,000, but let me rephrase it this way. If